So in this segment, we're going to be discussing Israel admitting to killing more aid workers. So they had to change their story recently because the fact that there was video footage that was released which contradicts their story of these being, as always, Hamas terrorists. But, Israel very rarely produces actually any proof of what they claim. So I'm going to play most of the video here. I'm just going to mute it. So it doesn't play with my audio. So you can see this was a convoy of first aid workers that were attacked by the IDF forces. So you can see clearly the lights are on these vehicles when they're driving down this road. So those claims they were advancing suspiciously without headlights or emergency signals on, but you can clearly see they had their headlights on. So you can clearly see it here. The convoy approaches a vehicle stopped by the side of the road. And so let's hope they're okay. So they rush over to go and help, as first aid workers do. So you can see high vis on. You can hear immediate gunshots. No shouts of IDF or anything like that, or any sign. This was an ambush. That's what the IDF did. They ambushed these first aid workers. Not for the first time this kind of thing has happened. The Israeli army had admitted its soldiers have made mistakes over the killing of 15 emergency workers in southern Gaza on the 23rd. So you'd imagine that people would be court-martialed over this. Someone should essentially definitely should lose jobs over this. More importantly, they should face arrests over this. They attacked a bunch of civilians. Israel claimed troops opened fire because the convoy approached suspiciously in darkness without headlights or flashing lights. It said movement of the vehicles had not been previously coordinated or agreed with the army. Why would the healthcare services in Gaza have to tell Israel where they're going? Why would they have to alert Israel if they're going to a site of an emergency? Do you know how much that could delay them by? The IDF insists that at least 6 of the medics were linked to Hamas. Linked how? They have a relative in Hamas, or they know they have a friend who's in Hamas, or they know a person, they live near a person. Please explain. The mobile video originally shared by the New York Times shows the vehicles pulling up on the road when without warning shots begin to fire just before dawn, which is what we just saw. An IDF official briefed journalists on Saturday saying the soldiers had earlier fired on a car containing 3 Hamas members. Okay. How does this change anything? When the ambulances responded and approached the area, aerial surveillance monitors informed the soldiers on the ground of the convoy advancing suspiciously. How do you define that? It doesn't make any sense. The soldiers assumed they were under attack and opened fire when the vehicle stopped, but yet the only gunshots fired were by the IDF. And if they were approaching, if they thought they were going to be under attack, why would you have someone run out clearly from their vehicle into open space? It doesn't make sense. Now, Israel has admitted its earlier account claiming the vehicle's approach without lights was inaccurate, attributing the report to the troops involved. So the troops involved had lied to you off the jump. So why would you believe anything they say further to this? Especially when a lot of these soldiers should be wearing body cams anyways. The video footage shows vehicles were clearly marked and the paramedics wore high-vis uniform. The soldiers buried the bodies of the 15 dead workers in sand to protect them from wild animals. Oh, how gracious of them, the official said, claiming the vehicles were moved and buried the day to clear the road. So how gracious of them. You kill a load of aid workers and then you bury them so they don't get eaten by wild animals. The most moral army in the world indeed. The IDF promised a thorough examination. We've heard this before. This is complete nonsense. What they've done here is just ambush a bunch of aid workers. You had very recently 2 MPs, British MPs, being banned from Israel. So they travelled there and they were basically denied entry. And the reason that they had been denied entry, according to Israel Immigration Authority, is because it accused the MPs of travelling to document the security forces. Now, why would an army be scared of it being documented? Why would they fear documentation? Honestly, it's a genuine question. It said Mohammed and Yang, the 2 MPs, had accused Israel of false claims and were actively involved in promoting sanctions against the Israeli ministers. So surely you would want these people in to show them, look, we're not doing anything wrong here, nothing illegal is happening here, and you don't have to. Why are you pushing for sanctions on us? Instead, they deported them effectively. Crazy business. You had a couple of Labour MPs talk about this and say how much of an issue this is. David Lammy spoke about it as well as Emily Thornberry.
Quite horrified, I have to say. Abdeslam Mohammed, and I know Yang very well. I know Abdeslam particularly because she's a member of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee. And these are 2 young women who are potential leaders. I mean, people listen to what they say. They are highly respected parliamentarians, and Israel is badly advised to try to alienate them, to humiliate them, and to treat them in this way. Because people listen to what these two young women say, and they will do for decades to come. And in my view, Israel really needs to start making friends as opposed to alienating people in this way. I think that it's an insult to Britain, and I think it's an insult to Parliament. I am outraged, and I cannot believe that the leader of the opposition would simply take on the face of it.
So we'll talk about that in a minute, because Badenoch was interviewed on BBC about it.
What it is that the Israelis say, because we know that there are times when the Israelis say what the Israelis say first time isn't what they say when they've had a chance to think about it.
Now she's right here. That's something we mentioned a minute ago. We have come a long way from Israel has a right to cut off food, water, and fuel in that infamous statement she made last year to this.
All we have to think about at the moment is the way in which those people arriving at the scene in ambulances were shot, and the first description and explanation that the Israelis gave, and now they're going back on it. I think that they will rue the day that they did this to British parliamentarians. This is the first time that they've ever refused MP.
I mean, I don't think they care about what British parliamentarians think, to be honest with you. So this was it. You know, either the lights were on or they were off. So, you know, there's constant statements about phone footage appears to contradict the Israeli account of killing, because our media class, complete garbage. Video footage appears to contradict the Israeli claims of Gaza medic killings. One can clearly see the lights are on. You know, even the BBC have put circles on the lights being on. So it doesn't appear to contradict it. It does contradict it. And this is Badenoch talking about this.
The big story with these two Labour MPs being refused entry to Israel. The government has said it was unacceptable. But do you think that Israel was entitled to do what they did? What's your view?
Countries should be able to control their borders. What I think is shocking is that we have MPs in Labour who other countries will not allow through.
Yeah, because they're worried things will get documented. That's why there are Tory MPs that can't go to China, for example. They've been put on a list. You know, there are MPs that can't go to Russia, for example, because they would have been put on a list. So I think it's shocking that these MPs are in Parliament or were in Parliament. No, that's the argument you're making. Do you realise how stupid you are?
I think that's very significant.
Shocking because?
Well, if you look at the reasons why the Israeli government has given for why they're not letting them in, they don't believe that they're going to comply with their laws. MPs do not...
It's literally just because they think that they're going to document the IDF.
...have diplomatic immunity. I believe that the people who represent us in Parliament should be people who should be able to go anywhere in the world, and people not be worried about what they're going to do when they go into those countries.
Are you suggesting the Israelis were right to worry that these two Labour politicians would break the law if they got into the country?
Well, that's the reason they gave. And what I believe is that every country should be able to control its borders. We do the same thing. There are many people that we don't allow...
Which elected officials of any other country would you ban from here?
...into our country, and I don't think we should be setting precedents in a different way.
So, just to be clear, you believe the Israeli government's account of this, not the Foreign Secretary who says they were treated unacceptably?
The Foreign Secretary has given his view, I've given...
It's completely pathetic. You know, Starmer should be so happy that this is the person the Tories have elected, because she's completely useless. She's not the clown, she's the entire circus. So, this story here, absolute travesty, you know, aid workers killed, which is, again, you know, like the IDF have a history of this. It's not the first time they've done this, you know, effectively ambush first aid workers. A situation where the IDF fear British parliamentarians so much that they will document the security forces of Israel, the IDF. Crazy behaviour. You have, you know, a Labour MP who previously defended Israel quite vociferously kind of turn around and say, look, we can't trust them. Effectively, and you have media accounts that clearly show that we cannot trust them, and you have this absolute clown who's trying to kind of defend it. It's crazy behaviour. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, support the channel on Patreon if you can, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.